Hi everyone, I'm here today with Covina Dunnihoo, who graduated from CWU in 2013, and she studied nutrition and got a minor in exercise science, and then she went on to Whitworth to get a degree in school counseling, and now works at Abrams Elementary in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Hey Covina.
Hi.
All right, I'm gonna jump right into the questions. So when and how did you know that you wanted to pursue school counseling as a career?
Towards the end of my program at Central, in the nutrition program, I originally went in because I wanted to help people. I had been an athlete all my life through high school, and then just continued doing like rec teams and stuff like that, intramurals at Central, but like wasn't playing full time. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed food. I still enjoy food. But I was originally thinking I'd get my RD and be a registered dietitian. Got to the end of it and kind of just, I liked it, but I wasn't passionate about it. And I realized, man, if I'm going to go on to grad school, I don't know if I'm going to make it through. I've never been good at school. It's always been something I've had to try hard to do well. And so I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And so I kind of decided I didn't think that was for me. So after graduating, I took the first job I could get, which was working at Suncadia as a maid. Did that for a few months. While I was in school, I'd worked for you guys in career services. And so a couple months after that, sometime during the summer, you guys called me up and said, hey, we need a temporary office assistant. Would you want to come join us for a little bit? And ended up going back and doing that as just a thought. I was like, man, I can get my foot in the door at the university. That'd be great. Which it did. 6 months later, I ended up getting a full-time position working for the vice president of operations as the office assistant there. Did my job so well that it became obsolete and they transferred me to IT. So worked in IT as the office assistant / sort of ish office administrator for I think another year or so after that. And during that time, I was really trying to do some more digging into what I wanted to do. I am very administratively skilled, which is why I was so good at those jobs. So I was looking into ITAM. I took the first course, which was more of an exploration course. And like, who are you? What are you passionate about? And will you fit well into ITAM? So I took that class and very quickly realized, nope. This is a really interesting field. And while I am very skilled in this way, it's not what I'm passionate about. It's not what I wanted to do necessarily. So while I was doing that, I was also running a middle school and high school youth group on the side in my spare time. And through this process of trying to figure out myself, as well as meeting with Vicki from Career Services, because she was kind of my go-to person during this time of figuring out my life, I came to realize my passion, the thing I was most excited for every single day was going home and having my high school girls come over and hang out at my house. And we talked through everything from boys, school, family, college, like anything and everything. So I just found that was really where I was passionate about, was just walking through life with them. So as I talked with Vicki more, she kind of was like, have you ever thought about maybe checking out school counseling? And I was like, what is that? So, and I know I had school counselors growing up, but I could not tell you who a single one of them were. I was very much a wallflower, kind of stuck to myself, didn't do a whole lot. And as I kind of thought back on that, I was like, man, I know people who have been impacted by school counselors. And I know I was impacted by college advisors and counselors. But through my, K-12 career, I don't remember anyone. But I loved working with my students. And so through that process, I really kind of was like, this might be something I could do. So I did some research, I connected with some school counselors, and through that process went, man, I think this could be it. Like, this could be what I want to do. So it was definitely an interesting process because I thought it was just this side thing that I was going to do for fun. Like, I like hanging out. I've always worked with kids most of my life, younger college students, younger kids. And just thought it was like a hobby side thing, the volunteer thing that I could do. Never thought it was something I could do every day of my life. And through processing with people, was really able to get to a point where I realized, oh no, I could do this full time.
How did you get your current job that you have now?
So I went to a career fair. I know, it's crazy. Um, so I'd done the career fairs in undergrad and like never felt successful at them, which is kind of silly because that was my job when I was working with you. Half of my job was putting on those career fairs. And so they have two big ed fairs in Washington State. There's one that happens in Spokane and one that happens in Tacoma. And I went to the one in Spokane. It's fairly small and the weather was bad, so all the West Side schools never showed, which was kind of a bummer because Spokane was in a weird transition. It's been in a weird transition with their education system. So I was like, well, what a perfect time to go home. I'll go back to Seattle. It'll be great. So I was looking to go back to the West Side. So we went to the Tacoma Fair, me and a couple of friends, looking for jobs. I was just looking at my West Side schools. I had my little checklist. I was chatting with people, you know, feeling really good about the whole thing. And along the back wall is where they hide all of the out-of-state school districts. And I was walking back there on my way to one specific school, but I was kind of looking at my notes, so I was slowly meandering. And this woman like stared me down. And so I was like, okay. And she was like, have you ever thought about Colorado? And I was like, well, I mean, I spent a summer there back in 2011 just for funsies. So sure, I guess. Chatted with her a little bit, found a little bit more out about the district. They're actually, half of it is in a city called Fountain. The other half is on post at Fort Carson, which is an Army base. And so that kind of spoke to me on a different level. I was like, okay, maybe, because I am a military kid. My dad was in the Army for the first half of my life, active duty. I went to 5 different elementary schools. Like, it was kind of crazy. So, you know, that kind of drew me in a little bit more than like some of the other schools. And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll talk with her. So we continued talking. She said, hey, we're doing some pre-screening interviews. I can sign you up. It'll be about 10 minutes before we get you in. Would you be interested? And I was like, I mean, you know, it's interview experience. Why not? I was looking for secondary, but they had already filled all their secondary roles. So it was for elementary school. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm gonna, again, experience is always good. Left, came back 10 minutes later, sat down, did a quick 15-minute pre-screen interview. I got home and a couple days later, I filled out the full application along with like 1,000 others. 2 days later, after I finished my application, a couple days later, I got a call from them, and 20 minutes after my interview, they offered me the job. So it was very quick, very much a whirlwind, but I'm really glad that I took it, so.
All right, Covina, so can you describe to us what a typical day as a school counselor at an elementary school looks like?
Right. So typical is a very loose term in my field. Anything with children typically is, but as a counselor, like I have a schedule, and I can tell you that like 89% of the time that's not what happens. So it's pretty fluid, that's for sure. So, but what I'll give you is like a list of things that I do, and you can guarantee that on any given day I do 3/4 of them. A couple of my bigger things that I do. So one-on-one counseling and behavior support. So that's me going and pulling a kiddo from class and spending about 20 minutes is usually what I spend with them, just one-on-one. We'll, you know, do a little intro, like, how are you? Fun get to know you type thing. Then we'll play like we'll do some sort of activity or play some sort of game that helps them build or learn a skill, whether it's social, emotional, or behavioral. And then, you know, we'll do like a little closing activity and then they go back to class. Then I do small group counseling and behavior support, which is the same thing, but with a group of anywhere from 2 to 6 kids. So I'll pull them out in a group. And then I do classroom guidance, which is me pushing into a classroom and doing whole class teaching. Typically, these are more structured around like a career week, bullying, cultural weeks, various things like that, different special weeks and stuff like that throughout the school year, where I'll push in and do a specific curriculum. And then, but I'm also kind of on call for teachers. So I've had teachers this year say, hey, my class is really struggling with this skill. Would you mind coming in and giving us some extra support on that? And so I'll create something around that particular particular skill, or beg, borrow, and steal it from somebody else because that helps me. Sharing is caring. And then, you know, push into the classroom and do that. I do class crisis responses, which is usually, we train, and our staff at my school are amazing at handling students who are struggling with something in a moment in class. But if it gets to the point where they can't help that child while still keeping their class moving forward, or if a child gets aggressive or violent, they'll push this special little button that calls the office. They'll tell the office what they need, and then the office will walkie me and I'll go down and check in. Sometimes it is as minor as there's a kid who's kind of shut down, teacher, they've stopped responding to the teacher. I've done things where I've climbed under the desk and stared up at them because they've got their head down on the desk, and that's just enough to get them to giggle. And then I say, hey, let's go for a walk, you know. Other times, unfortunately, kids get overstimulated and will start throwing things, flipping desks. We have to evacuate, and then I step in to try and help calm them down, help them regulate their emotions so that they can reintegrate in. Other things, so I do, I'm in charge of kinder mindfulness and yoga, which is really fun, teaching 5-year-olds how to breathe.
Nice.
And doing yoga. It's very exciting. So I do that every day as a related arts for our students. It's part of their kindergarten rotation. I provide cafeteria support. So in the mornings, I'm in there first thing, greeting students, interacting, helping them open their milk. And then at lunch, I'll check in as well. I make attendance calls, which not in like a disciplinary way, because I do not do discipline. That is not my job. I will not do it. But I do the calls to parents to be like, hey, we've noticed your students missed a number of days. Is there any way I can support? What can I do to help? So I make that initial contact, and then if it has to go further, it moves up to my assistant principal. Take care of special accommodation plans. So if you are already in the field of education, you may have heard of a 504. If you have not yet and you go into education, you will eventually hear about it. But it's basically, there's special education, and then there's 504. So special education, they change the curriculum. I don't really have a whole lot to do with that at my school. I mostly do, hey, this kiddo has ADHD, struggles a little bit, needs to move around. How do we accommodate for that in the classroom? So they're still getting the same information, the same curriculum. They just need some extra like environmental supports. So I take care of all those. I had 20 of them this year that I took care of. I do teacher support, so both classroom support, brainstorming ideas, that kind of thing, but also social emotional support for teachers. They deal with a lot, and sometimes they just need a safe space held for them where they can come and talk to me. So I provide that as well. I do parent consultations, so if parents have concerns, whatever. I don't really do a whole lot as far as like any sort of family counseling or anything like that, but I provide resources to parents, but I also will consult with them on their kiddo if they're concerned. I work with a lot of the student plan meetings, so academic and behavioral support plans, as far as like these kids are really low and they need some help, but they're not high enough for one of our higher plans. They just need some basic structural stuff. I'm a part of those team meetings. And then the last couple of things are not my favorite things, but unfortunately they are just part of the nature of my job. So CPS reports, I've had to do a number of those this year. And in my field with working with kids of military families, we unfortunately see a spike when we get deployment groups back. And that's really hard on everybody. And then suicide and threat assessments. And so these are assessments we do on kiddos that we're concerned about. Either they've made a threat to another student or a teacher, or they've made a threat against themselves. And ideally, especially with the littles, it's minor, you know, and it's just they made a comment because they were angry, and so we have to give them train them into a different way to express those emotions. But I have had to hospitalize 3 students for concerns of self-harm this year. So it's not a fun part of the job, but it's part of the job that I think that I take pretty seriously, because these are little people who do still have very big emotions, and they're learning how to deal with them. And we need to support them in that process, support the families as they're trying to figure out how to deal with them. So I know that there's more things I do, but those are the big things that I could think of.
Wow. Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot, Covina.
So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Okay. So the next one kind of relates, but offshoots a little bit. So I was wondering, in your opinion, what skills and strengths do you feel are key for someone to be successful as a school counselor?
Absolutely. Relationship building, I think, as a counselor is huge, because if kids and teachers don't feel like they can trust you, you're not going to be able to give the appropriate support. So I think relationship building is really an important thing, to be able to connect with people on multiple levels. And especially, like, you're going to have kids who have been through more than most adults have at any point in time, depending on where you work. And they're going to constantly push back, and you have to be able to show them that your love is almost unconditional. Like, like, you just have to keep showing them. It doesn't matter how many times you hit me, swear at me, anything at me, I am still here. And so being able to show them that and really be there, and then just being open and building relationship, I think, is really important. Empathy is huge. Being able to see and understand other people's feelings and feel that a little bit, like, and just help them, give them the space to process what they're going through is really important. Flexibility and adaptability, holy moly. Again, no 2 days are the same. So being able to roll with that, those are things that I find myself to be adaptable, but in the moment flexibility, I very much struggle with. Like, I always have, and I think I always to some extent will. And it's something that me and my team have talked about, like, I'm working on it, I'm getting better, but as long as you're willing to work for it, growth is possible. So organization, again, with that crazy list of things, I have had to figure out how to organize my brain and my life and my notes and my everything, because otherwise I drop things and it gets crazy. Just having that open heart and open mind and a growth mindset of being willing to, like, let other people in and share who you are with other people on a genuine level. One thing I've learned this year is, I'm still growing in, is how to be kindly confrontational. I work with teachers who have been educators for anywhere from 4 years to like 20 something years. And here I am, year one. Hey, I noticed you did this thing. Don't. Like, and so like, trying to, like, it's been hard, because there's times where I'm like, how do I as a first year counselor tell a 15-year educated teacher, don't do that? Like,
No
so
kidding.
learning to be kindly confrontational is really hard, and having those hard conversations. Public speaking is always helpful, though I find it a lot easier to talk in front of kids than I do adults, because in front of kids I can just be awkward and weird and they think it's funny. Adults, if I get awkward and weird, they get awkward and weird, and then it's like nobody knows what to do. So but it definitely helps, because you're talking to lots of people all the time. Being reflective is really important, in that you have to know yourself, you have to know your own biases, have to know your own struggles, because you need to know where your line is and where you may need to pull back and let somebody else take over, or how you can best serve students. Because sometimes I've found myself in situations where, like, man, I don't know that I am the best person to serve this student right now. And if I'm not reflective enough to recognize that that's okay, I'm going to do more damage than I do help. It's not often that I find myself in that situation, but it's happened. And then passion and energy are always, if you're going into education, if you're not passionate about it, you're going to burn out quick, because it can be a rough field. And energy is always helpful. I joke with my friends, I'm the Energizer Bunny. I just constantly go, go, go. I'm also a little squirrely, so I think that helps with being with small humans. That I have lots of energy. I'm not afraid to make myself look like a dum-dum in front of other people, especially children. And that kind of helps them to see who I am and feel more comfortable with engaging with me. So.
Wow, thank you so much, Covina. Lots of soft skills there. That was great. Okay, so last question is, what advice do you have for students who may want to become a school counselor?
Yeah. I think the first thing is really looking into it, like getting to know, because it's different counseling in primary than it is middle school, high school. You know, I think most programs require you to do all 3 levels, so you can kind of get a taste of it. I thought, man, I would never want to do middle school, and then I went to middle school and went, oh my gosh, I could do this forever. I love these awkward little souls. I also thought, I don't want to do elementary school, and I'm a year in and going, I can do this for a while longer. This could be fun. So, you know, don't knock it till you try it, but like definitely do some research and look into different things, I would talk to different people and see, because different locations, different school districts, different people have different approaches in the way that they do things. So it's good to kind of get a lot of different perspectives. So research is always good before you step into it. Grad school will be harder than you will ever imagine. I knew it was going to be hard going in, and it was still harder than I thought it was going to be. But through the process, like, don't be afraid to fail, because you will. Don't be afraid to cry, because you will. But with that, like, feel every experience you go through. I feel like I did more like learning about myself than I did learning about the education system. And we learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot. I didn't have any background in education as far as like being a teacher or anything like that going in. So I was like learning everything. But I still feel like I learned more about myself than I did about education through the process, because I think as a counselor, that's really what it's about, is being self-aware and knowing who you are so you can best serve others. You know, take care of yourself, because in giving and serving fields, we tend to pour out and pour out and pour out and pour out, and then forget about ourselves, and then we have nothing left to pour out, or we're still trying to pour out, and it just becomes now we're just empty, and then continuing to give, and that's where burnout comes. I actually recently listened to a podcast, which if you're looking at going into counseling, The Thoughtful Counselor is an amazing podcast. I recommend it. Little plug there for one that I love. Okay. But there was one that was talking about self-care and how important it is, because the burnout rate can be really high amongst counselors because we don't take care of ourselves. So even through grad school, like, I had to stop and take care of myself so that I could learn and grow and develop. And then community and connections always beneficial. Even when I was in grad school, I was involved in the community, I was volunteering, I was working, and I was in school and like trying to do all these things. But what that did is that gave me so many really strong connections that I still go back to those people. Like, my cohort has a Facebook group, and we're constantly sharing resources and ideas and asking questions, and they're all in Washington and I'm in Colorado, so it's a little different there, but there's still that connection. And then even then, I just recently joined an elementary school counselor Facebook group that's nationwide. And so we're talking about how we're handling this whole COVID-19 thing. As counselors, none of us have ever done that, whether it's our first year or their like 25th year, you know, like, we're all still figuring this out. And so we're able to share resources, share ideas, share anything. And I'm talking with people from, you know, New Jersey and Kentucky and Ohio and Washington and Oregon and California. And so it's like you're getting people from all over the United States to share and connect with, and just feel that support. Like, you're not the only one. This is something we're all dealing with. Hopefully going back to a normal life at some point in time, still having those connections and like, hey, what can I do if I've got students who are struggling with this in their classroom? Oh, here's some resources and some ideas. And just building that connection, I think, is really important. So.
All right. Well, that was awesome, Covina. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You take care of yourself.
All right, I will.